you're the owner of Aqua Vita Farms Consulting, which is in Whitesboro. What did you do? You took an old factory building? How did you do this?
That's correct. Well, we had an old factory out in Sherrill.
We talked about this in the past.
Yeah, a little bit, I think so. We had the old factory out in Sherrill at the old Oneida Silver, where we took 13,000 square feet, turned it into an indoor ecosystem, used an application called aquaponics, which is the combination of fish farming and hydroponics. So we grow the fish, use the wastewater from the fish to hydroponically grow produce, and then that produce would act as a filter, cleaning the water, sending it back to the fish.
So so when you're in your containers where you have the plants are in the water, right?
Yes.
Do you have fish in there too?
So the fish actually live in their own tanks. A lot of people think the fish live in with the plants. Not quite the most efficient way to do it. So the fish have their own tanks. We actually had 4 5,000-gallon fish tanks. Wow. Had over 8,000 fish living in the building. And, the really cool thing is that we took an old building where for 65 years before us, they made spoons, forks, and knives, and we converted it through what's called controlled environment agriculture, which is, becoming a real hot topic these days.
Now, so you are currently growing what right now?
So right now, we no longer operate in Sherrill. And so I'm solely in the consulting field with regard to controlled environment agriculture, aquaponics.
So you're not in the farming business right now. You're a consultant.
More of an agricultural support role.
Okay, all right. And did you find it was hard to make the produce and make the money? Because I do know that a lot of restaurants do use stuff from you guys, people that do what you do.
Absolutely,
like
absolutely.
Taylor and the Cook is a good example.
Absolutely.
Always using those fresh ingredients, and you can now get something that's grown here that you could never during the winter months. You could never get fresh.
Well, the community that we live in is terrific at supporting local. Yeah. Right. We've shown that on a lot of levels, and the restaurants in our community were terrific at supporting Aqua Vita Farms. What happened with us was the science behind aquaponics when we started out 4.5 years ago was not well understood, and even today, while it's better understood, it's very closely held industry. Okay, there's a few players out there, us being one of them, that have spent a lot of money in the industry, have discovered the science and technology behind it, the right way to do things. We didn't have all of that information to begin with, so we went through a system redesign at about the 6-month point, which ended up costing us more than we had, and we ran out of cash. So, a typical startup cash flow scenario.
So you failed. Yep. And I've been there, and the most successful people in the world have many failures. And you pick yourself back up, you brush yourself off,
absolutely,
you plow forward, which seems like what you're doing. So you consult people so they can do this sort of thing in their own home.
Exactly. So we get people that come to us that say, hey, Mark, I want to grow tomatoes and lettuce and cucumbers for my family year-round. How can I do that? So we can set them up with an indoor system, whether that's in their basement or their garage. We've done a couple of garage conversions. Okay. Or if they want to go out back behind their house or they have property where they can set up a greenhouse, we do that as well. And so whether they want to use aquaponic technology where they're growing the fish and the produce, or they want to use straight hydroponic technology where they're only going to grow produce, then we set them up with that. We also have customers that come in that are much larger scale customers, so 20, 30, 40,000 square foot grows, where they're coming in saying that they want to get into the field and that they're looking for some guidance in that.
Where does the medicinal marijuana come into play? That was the headline everybody was jumping on. Clearly,
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
There are hydroponics experts all over. That have been doing this sort of thing for a long time.
I'm sure there are. Yeah. And, people do jump all over the medicinal marijuana or, medical grade cannabis because with the Compassionate Care Act here in New York State recently passed, so it's a hot topic. The health commissioner has yet to come out with the rules and regs. They've been tasked with the job of taking the law and implementing that or telling us how we're going to implement that in the state. And where that comes in is that we've got people who are calling saying, hey, Mark, this is a real example. Had a guy call me up and say, hey, Mark, I've got a 20,000 square foot warehouse in a city in New York State, and I'm already buying lights. I'm going to get a license. I'm already buying lights. Whoa, wait a minute. We're not quite there yet. Right. We've got some groundwork. We've got some work to do before we start buying equipment.
And you're clearly, I think what the state's going to try to do is offer licenses and all that stuff.
Absolutely. Well, we'll be a licensed process. And, I was pointing out to a gentleman yesterday that I spoke with, if you read the bill, which is now law cover to cover, okay, with Governor Cuomo's changes, and there's some very significant changes that Governor Cuomo put in there sort of last minute before the bill went through, then we would know that if we're applying for a license, we have to have somebody on our executive management team that has significant growing experience. So that word significant is used in that law.
Where you as a consultant come into play.
Absolutely, to make sure that they have all their ducks in a row.
I have to break, but
yes.
quickly, how much does it cost to set up a small shop in your basement? Tomatoes, lettuce.
You can set up a small operation for just a few $100.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Well, wow. Sit through the break because I want to talk
Absolutely.
to you more here. Hold tight. Mark Doherty from Medical. Well, we're talking medical marijuana, but it's Aqua Vita Farms Consulting. Back after the news here. Topical produce that I was maybe creating in my basement using hydroponics. I probably would be okay.
Bill, I think that's absolutely the answer. Rather than these drugs that are causing you rashes and other side effects, let's take care of it through healthy eating. And, we can get you there by putting a little system in your basement, a little aquaponics system. We ought to get you up to our training class that we're hosting on the 24th, 25th, 26th of October. Right. We got a class coming up. Yeah, we're at the Home and Farm Center in Oriskany. And we will be conducting a class. One of the really cool additions to this class, because we've done this class, this will be the 7th time. We've brought over 200 people to Central New York to learn aquaponics and controlled environment agriculture over the last 3.5 years. And one of the cool additions to this class, being fully revamped, is that we will be doing an aquaponics system build-out during the class. So we'll spend some time in the classroom, and then we'll go out to a staging area where one of my business partners will be out there actually constructing a small-scale aquaponics system, something that would be perfect for your basement. A little
small scale in basement. What are we talking about? How big is that?
350-gallon tank that holds the fish, and then 3 grow beds. So
you have to have the tank that holds the fish. You have to have that tank.
Absolutely.
What do you use, like feeder fish, or?
You can use anything. There's nothing. There's nothing that really says they need to be one fish over another. Although we find some fish are a little easier or tend to work a little bit better. One of the things you have to consider with aquaponics is, does my fish and what the fish want match my plants and what the plants want? So if you're trying to grow, say, a cool water fish like a trout with a warm plant like a tomato, they're probably not going to line up too well.
But so you could then eat the fish.
Absolutely. Or you could grow ornamentals, and you could get into selling ornamentals or just keeping them as pets. A lot of people use koi.
So I want tomatoes, I want cucumbers maybe, I want basil and some herbs and stuff like that. And to do that, what would it cost me for the smaller system?
If you wanted to build something yourself, you could do it for, we've seen people do it for as little as just a few $100s because they're out there scrapping.
And if you recommend, you
finding
consult,
the right materials.
You consult, you get everything equalized the way it's supposed to.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got to balance it out.
Yeah, typical systems like the one that we installed for Mexico School District. We actually installed one out there not too long ago. Would run, depending on how many bells and whistles you want to add on, because really the sky's the limit with the equipment and lighting and timers and everything that you can get into. You can be, $3,000-$4,000 for, a smaller system. But again, that's something, the more you put into it in terms of equipment, the more automated the system becomes.
So the fish in the tank actually feed, that water then feeds in to the system.
That's correct. Yeah, in aquaponics, we feed the fish feed the plants, and the plants clean the water. So it's a symbiotic system. What you achieve is you're actually using 90% less water than traditional soil-based farming, and it's better. We always say it's better than organic.
Yeah.
Why? Because we have no choice but to do completely organic methodology, because if we don't, we'll kill the fish.
Right. Interesting stuff.
This is really interesting.
And of course, you can't help but take the weeds leap. That Showtime television.
Yeah, that was a good show.
People growing. The problem is in your basement, if you have lights on and somebody looks in your basement,
they're going to see that.
That's a red flag. This guy's growing something that he shouldn't be growing.
Yeah, unless it's tomatoes, right?
Yeah.
So here's the thing. With the Compassionate Care Act that just came through, we're getting a lot of people that are interested in throwing their hat in the ring on that. One of the big issues there, or hurdles that we need to look at, is that Governor Cuomo's decision to make only non-smokable forms available in the state means that organic practices are absolutely critical. Why? Because the forms of cannabis that will be sold in New York State will be concentrated forms, like tinctures. Now, if we concentrate cannabis or anything else, we are going to take everything that's there. So we're going to take THC and CBD, which are the desired forms of the cannabis that we want. But if that cannabis has been sprayed with pesticides or treated with chemical fertilizers, we're concentrating that as well. We can't have biopharmaceuticals, medicine, that's full of pesticides. Right. It just doesn't work like that. We've seen that play out in Colorado. We've seen that play out in California, where they're demanding, the patients are demanding that these concentrated forms are free and clear of all pesticides and chemical fertilizers. So organic becomes critical. In the class that we're teaching, a lot of people get caught up on what we're growing. I'm here to tell you that if you can grow tomatoes really, really well, you will be amazed at how that knowledge translates to cannabis and just about everything else out there that you can grow. When we're looking at controlled environment agriculture, it's important to remember the lights don't care what's underneath them.
Right, right.
My lights didn't look down and say, oh, that's a lettuce, I'm going to do this.
Right,
or, oh, that's a tomato, or I'm going to... Lights, which are fluorescent lights, which work very, very well. In fact, at Aqua Vita Farms in Sherrill, we had over 485 T5 lights.
So just a regular fluorescent light?
So it's a regular fluorescent ballast, and then we use bulbs that are in specific light spectrum to induce whatever growing we want to do. So if we want a vegetative cycle or a fruiting and flowering cycle, we're going to change the coloration of the light. Basically, indoors, we're mimicking Mother Nature, and so when your seeds come in to you, they're pre-programmed. So a lettuce doesn't sprout up as a tomato and vice versa. It knows what it is. Yeah. It's looking for inputs. In controlled environment agriculture, we're going to give those plants the inputs that they're looking for. And that's a big part of what we're going to cover in our upcoming training class.
Website and when this is all going to happen?
aquavitafarms.com. Go on there, click the training tab, and that's going to take you to our online registration. October 24th, Friday, October 24th, we've got a little kickoff, 6 to 9 p.m. That's going to be the beginning of it. That's where we've got guest speakers coming in to talk about Controlled Compassionate Care Act, medical cannabis, New York State, what it means for the entrepreneur, investor, and employee. And then Saturday, the 25th, October 25th, we're going to get into aquaponics. The next day, controlled environment agriculture. I just want to let you know, Bill, I appreciate being on. So what I'm going to do is, for your listeners and your listeners only, if they go on today or tomorrow, they register, they're going to get the early bird rate, which ends on Friday. And then if they plug in Keeler, your last name, during checkout, we're going to give them another 15% off.
Wow, that's awesome.
That's
cool.
Spelled Keeler.
That's how we spelled it. Good thing. All right.
All right, nice job, man. I like it. Mark Doherty, it's Aqua Vita, VITA Farms Consulting in Whitesboro. So, interesting stuff. You could have tomatoes and basil fresh from your garden in the middle of January. That would be pretty cool. 8:19, back in a second. Hold tight. First News Keeler in the morning on WIBX.